So now we're going to move on to answering some of the questions on the page here and just listing some pairs of different types of angles. And I've actually already listed here E and J and G and H for complementary angles, because you can see that E and J are 30 plus 60 is 90. Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees. And G and H also add up to 90 degrees. So this pair and this pair are complementary. Now there's lots of pairs of vertical angles on the page, and so we can list a couple of them. I'm going to start up here, like A and C are vertical angles, and B and D are a pair of vertical angles. And then if I move down here, there's a bunch more. E and H, J and G are vertical angles. So any angle that's across from another angle where two lines cross is a vertical angle, and F and I are vertical angles. And I think that's all the pairs of vertical angles. There's three sets down here, 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2 up there. So I should have 5 sets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of vertical angles. And then alternate interior angles. There's really only one set on here that fits the description of alternate interior, and that's D and J. So if you look at D and J, they're interior to the parallel lines. They're in between the parallel lines, and they're alternating sides of the line that cuts through them called the transversal. That's what this line is called. So D and J are the only pair of alternate interior angles. Now there's a number of supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are angles that add up to 180 degrees, but in this case we're asking only for pairs of lines that do that, so or angles that do that. So if we look for angles that add up to 180 degrees, there are a bunch right here. There's A and B that add up to 180 degrees. B and C, so these two right here. And then C and D. And then D and A. So all the ones up here, all these pairs, if you look at them, they're all going to add up to 180 degrees because they're all going to make a straight line. A straight line is 180 degrees, so when you look at the arc of a straight line, you have a 180 degree line, and so there's your supplementary angles. Now, there's only one pair in the bottom set that add up to 180 degrees. You can take 3 in some cases and add up to 180 degrees, but in this case, we're just going to look at the pair, and that would be F and I. The two 90-degree angles add up to 180 degrees. So there's your supplementary angles. Now we have another type that depend on the parallel lines, and that's called alternate exterior. And a lot of times if you just read the words, then it sort of explains that we're alternating sides of the transversal and they're on the exterior of the parallel line. So if we look outside the parallel lines and alternating sides of the transversal, then B and G are alternating and exterior to the parallel line. So alternate exterior, and that would be G and B is the combination that does that. Now, I'm not going to list all the pairs of adjacent angles because there's lots of them. Every time you have an angle next to one another, like A and B are adjacent, B and C, C and D, D and A, all these angles that are next to each other are adjacent angles. So you have a whole bunch of choices for adjacent angles, lots of pairs. Anytime you have two angles next to each other that share a common side and a common vertex, which is the point where the angles meet, then you have adjacent angles. And so that's all the different types of angles. We've also answered one more question on this part of the practice test, along with all the angle measures that we did earlier in the first video for this test. We also answered what the name of these lines are. The R line, this one that comes this way, and this one here that cut across the parallel lines. And the name of that is called a transversal line. So a transversal line is a line that cuts across. If you have a set of parallel lines and you take another line and you cross it, that line that you create that crosses it is called the transversal line. And so that takes care of the first page of this practice test, along with all the angle measures that we already did earlier in the first video.